Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Speak to Transform. And you're going to want to tune in today and listen to this interview. If you know people in your world and maybe in your own family, in your life, who are struggling with some of the issues around autism or unexpected diseases that happen among children, and that you want to be able to hear a story that's going to bring you hope, that maybe will give you a strategy to be able to work with those people in your world who are displaying symptoms of autism, or people that you know, to be able to share this episode with them, to be able to give them some sense of, oh, wow, I'm not alone, and a sense of hope. So, my guest today is going to share part of her journey that happened actually several years ago. So there's a lot to tell on the other side of this. It's not just in the moment, but it's actually, she can share the outcome of what happened during that time. And so I want to bring here to the stage Christa Proctor, my dear friend. Hi, Christa.
Hi, Lisa. Hi, everybody. It's good to be here, Lisa.
It is so good to connect with you, Christa. Christa is in California. She is a top-rated real estate agent as well as a pastor. She runs a Bible study regularly online, and she also is a mom, a wife. She's an online entrepreneur. She's got a lot going on because she's just one of those multi-talented, full capacity. She's just so faithful to the things that God lays on her heart. And Kristen you and I connected a couple of years ago through a mentor that we both have in the online space. And when I got to know you and I heard that you'd written this book called The Deception of Disease. Let me just bring this up. And then you began to share with me your story about your journey that you had with your two children, your first two girls. You've got four girls. And I began to hear a little bit of your journey. Can you everybody see that? There you go. It's called The Deception of Disease: How We're Taking Our Kids Back from Autism. And Christa, this is on Amazon. If you guys want to go and pick it up, it's there. You can Google her name or put in the actual title and pick it up, and even to share with some friends of yours. I think you'll find tremendous value. I've already purchased it and sent it to friends of mine and family members, and they have come back and said, oh my goodness, this is gold. And I'm actually going to send this interview to them because they've said to me, Lisa, you should interview Christa.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And so I just want you to know that it's actually brought hope to them. I can name a few of them right now, and they've implemented some of the things that you've talked about in the book. But let's kind of go back a little bit in time, if you would, and talk about a bit about your journey with autism, how it all began
Sure.
for you. Yeah.
Yeah, it began, we didn't know that that was our journey. Even while we were on our journey, it was about just over 20 years ago. And our oldest daughter, who's 24 now, had all of a sudden, I remember taking her for her pictures when she was 2 years old. And she suddenly just stopped cooperating in general, and that wasn't like her. She was always really happy, really eager to learn and do and repeat words and just, grow and have fun. I remember when she was 17 months old, she and I and her dad took a trip to Disney World for a week, and just the three of us explored the parks, and every day she'd be in the bathtub and I have video of her, and I was teaching her new words and she was saying all kinds of words. It was so fun. And keep in mind, she was our first daughter. I had no point of reference for what typical milestones would be. And so I didn't know what was typical, what wasn't. And then I remember taking her to her photos at JCPenney for her 2-year-old photos. And she was really unhappy. I just thought she was throwing a temper tantrum. And I thought, uh-oh, here we go, in the terrible twos, so to speak. And within a month, she refused to say her own name. She refused to engage with us. I remember being in the car saying, what's your name? What's your name? And just so fast forward, by the time she was 5, she had completely stopped engaging with us, or if we tried, it was, like she would have a meltdown. And I mean, this was the kid who loved to hum tunes and all kinds of things before. And then by that time, our second daughter was now 2 years old, 2.5 years old. So rewinding a bit, when she was 3, by the time Danielle was 3, I started thinking, I think something might be wrong. Maybe she needs a little help. I had a friend whose child was in speech therapy at 3 years old. And I thought, well, I wonder if that's something that we could look at. I talked to him. He was an engineer. He told me what he knew. We called the school district in our area. That's who you call when they're 3. And she got into some preschool classes, but I kept thinking, she gets more than this in Sunday school. So I don't know if this preschool class is really making a difference. And I remember asking the teacher of the preschool class, do you think that this is doing anything to help her progress? And all of a sudden that teacher locked eyes with me, and she's like, you can ask for, she started telling me all these things. Well, you can ask for, it's called an IEP here in the States, individualized education program meeting. You can ask for a meeting, all these. And I was like, whoa, okay. All of a sudden she locked into the fact that I was questioning whether this was appropriate. Then I started thinking, oh my gosh, so they're not just going to tell me what's best.
Wow.
I'm going to have to figure out what's available because, sorry, I keep going back and forth, but it was a long time ago. So I'm in the book, it tells it categorically. So this was still when Danielle was 3, 4, and 5. We had
So
her.
just to pause there, Christa, this is what year would this be now?
Oh gosh.
She was born. When was she born?
She was born in 2000. So this would be around 2003, 2004, 2005.
Sure. Yeah, it's a long time ago, people.
A long time ago. And a lot has changed since then, a lot more awareness, a lot more understanding. So I remember calling, and the school district and our regional center here in the county sent a psychologist to our house. They did all these tests, and I remember them spitting out data to us. This was also while she was in that like preschool light situation through the school district. And the psychologist was explaining data to us. Okay, she was 6 months to 12 months behind in her language. And they talked about receptive language versus expressive language. And I was like, okay, so will she be able to catch up then before kindergarten? Like, I'm still completely, no one ever said the word autism or pervasive development disorder or no diagnosis was ever brought up. It was just, here's how behind she is. Here are her skill levels. And I thought, I already kind of, okay, this confirmed what I guess I kind of knew, but I didn't really know because she was my first. Yeah. So then by that time, when that preschool teacher just locked eyes on me, and I could tell she was sort of urging me, you need to ask for more, or you need to revisit. I was like, whoa. Okay, so I don't even know what I don't know, but it's on me to ask for things that I don't even know exist.
Wow.
So then I mean, all that.
I'm just feeling the overwhelm. When you said that, I just felt like this overwhelm.
Yeah, and in the meantime, my second daughter was born, and I remember when our first daughter was born, for us, there was a vaccine injury. I'm not saying that's the case for every child on the spectrum. There are so many environmental and social emotional triggers that can contribute to a diagnosis like autism. But for us, we saw a marked difference with Danielle after her 2-year well child visit. What's the point of a well child visit? In the US, the only reason is shots. That's the only reason. So our second daughter, when she was 12 months, okay, I called her the kid of 1,000 faces. Like at every mealtime, she would just make us laugh with all of her expressions and her goofiness. And we would just laugh back and forth and engage. And then at 12 months, she had to catch up on her shots. So she
Mm.
had like 6 immunizations at one time within a month. Like I could see, where's our child going? And then they both would just sit and line things up in a row. And if you tried to touch, like for one, my second daughter was Disney princesses. She would just line them up, line them up. If I tried to touch, if I tried to play with them, if we tried to take them inside, outside and play, it
Mm.
was nothing but tantrums. I felt like I can't even leave the house for about 6 months because I just thought I'm the worst parent. I can't get my kids to behave, to interact. We would go to someone's house and their child would cry and cry, come running to the adults where we were visiting and saying, "Danielle won't play with me." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what I don't know." So, long story short, once I realized, okay, they might know something I don't, but they're not. I mean, what are they not telling me? So finally, it was honestly, it wasn't until they were 3 and 5 already in the system getting services that
Mhm.
one of the educators looked at me and said, we were at another IEP, and she said, "You need help. This is autism." I was like, "It is? This is autism?" Oh, okay. I mean, it's
Wow.
so weird, Lisa. And then I
Yeah.
remember calling our social worker, who was our case manager for all the psychologists and things with the county.
Yeah.
And I said, "Why would somebody have not said that word to me before so
Yeah.
that we could understand what's going on?" And she said, "Well, some parents get really upset when they hear that, and we're just really care." And I said, "That's like going to the doctor to find out what's wrong with you, and you have cancer, but they're afraid of hurting your feelings, so they don't tell
Wow.
you it's cancer."
Wow.
I I honestly,
I
I
mean,
was stunned. So,
yeah. And
mhm.
meanwhile, you're living in this state of just trying to figure out what's going on and how do I engage with my child? How do I help my child? And feel like you're just walking in the dark, trying to feel your way.
Exactly. And then, because I just thought, okay, we're bad parents. We took parenting classes.
Oh, yeah.
We just thought if we knew better, our kids would be able to be better, like feel
Mhm.
better, act better, like be happier. We wanted happy children. And these children, they wouldn't play with us or anyone else. They wouldn't
Mhm.
talk. They just would melt down and throw tantrums. And by this time too, the Danielle was able to memorize Veggie Tales videos, and she would appropriately use, it's called scripting. She would appropriately use Veggie Tales dialogue in miniature, like just to get her point across.
Wow. And this is
That
your
if
5
you think of how
this
smart
is your oldest, right?
our oldest, I
Yes,
mean,
yes.
really, like that is such an intelligent workaround.
Totally.
And then Sophia, though, was completely shut down. She was just like entirely in her own world.
Mm.
Danielle would repeat everything you ever said to her, or she would want you to repeat everything.
Wow.
I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, but it is like, and then Danielle's OCD issues were quite severe. So we had to continually jump through hoops. We would wake up at 5:30 in the morning with her just to jump through all the hoops needed to get her sweet little sweetness out the door on the bus in kindergarten and
Mhm.
preschool, um, on time so that we could jump through, open the door the right way, close the door the right way, move the bowl the right way, redo it. Yeah, all, oh my gosh, all the things. So,
Wow.
yeah,
So just to if I understand you correctly, so it wasn't until they were 5 and 3, so your 2 daughters, that you actually now had some kind of a diagnosis of some sort
diagnosis.
or some kind of a description of, okay, this is why they have lost their ability to communicate in a regular way, and all these things the symptoms that you're seeing is now descriptive of, oh, okay, this is a something that is labeled. There's a label
Yeah, there's
here.
a reason. There's
There's a
something
reason.
going
Thank you.
on
Thank
in
you.
there. Like there's something going on in there. And then all we knew about autism at that point, then we were learning from the social workers, the counselors, the teachers, and they are wonderful, God-send people.
Yep.
It was all external, like helping cope,
Yes.
help, just tools to help cope, tools to help navigate. It was
Yes.
no discussion, because I remember asking one of the psychologists, "Is there a cause?" And I remember her saying, "Well, did you ever have an epidural? Did they have antibiotics?" But she couldn't really say anything, and it was just like
Mm,
something. I think in hindsight, she might have been trying to tip me off that there could be biomedical reasons that I could look
mm,
into, but no one was allowed to say anything like that in their arena. So
right.
I was, again, we're just getting through the day. And
Yeah.
we had people coming into our home for hours and hours every day
Yes.
just to help, oh my word, help the kids learn how to ask for something
Yes.
simple. Or so anyway, I just remember my life was spent driving to there. Oh wow, Lisa, there's just so many things that you do to help your kids.
So
So
true.
what happened was, we were praying, because once we realized it was autism, being ministers of the word of God,
Yeah.
and we take Jesus at his word.
Mhm.
Did Jesus ever make someone, ill in any way, mentally ill,
Yeah.
emotionally ill, like neurologically? He All we see in the New Testament, and he said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. So we know the Father's heart through Jesus.
Yeah.
All we ever saw was Jesus heal and deliver people in need like
Yeah.
that. Like even the boy that kept throwing himself in the fire, and the dad's like,
Mhm.
I don't even know what to do.
Yeah.
God, I believe, help my unbelief. So these were all, we decided, we don't think this is from God. We believe Jesus came to set our kids free from these symptoms. So let's just ask God for wisdom. Let's believe. What do we have
Mm,
to lose by believing?
so
It's
good.
not going to hurt anything.
Yeah.
It can't make it worse by believing. So we decided. So we fasted and prayed for 3 weeks. And there's definitely, at that time, there were two schools of thought among all the parents. Now, this was before social media. This was before YouTube. All I had was some internet searches. Google wasn't even a thing.
Yeah.
And you could kind of search the internet to look for forums. And there were definitely two ways of thinking on this with parents. Many parents felt that, okay, this is just this is part of my child's identity. This is who they are. And then the other set of parents, which we fell into that category, the latter, was, this is something that we want our kids to be free from. So
Mhm.
are there answers? So um, fast forward, my husband was speaking on Palm Sunday at a church in San Jose, and we had been fasting and praying. And the little old lady who had been a longtime member of the church, and she had matching gloves and hat and everything. She came up to me and she said, "God gave me a dream last night." And we were just chatting. And she said, "Every disease is a lie." And I said, "Yeah, wow, yeah. Okay." She goes, "No, every disease is a lie." And I said, "Okay." So I just let that sit. Then I had decided, because some parents were doing special diets, and I was like, well, maybe we should do a special diet too. Like, well, I don't know what's going to help my child be more healthy. So went to a friend of mine who's a holistic doctor. She's also an OBGYN background, but she's now into holistic medicine. So she asked, well, what are you doing right now for them? So I was like, okay, they're in ABA therapy, they're in special day classes, they're da, da, da. I listed like all the therapy. She's like, oh, no, 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 no. I mean, she's like, that, I mean, that's fine, but and I thought, what is, okay, that's all anybody's doing. Like, what more is there? And then again, it hit me, there's more. And then her husband turned me onto a website called Generation Rescue, which
Mm,
was created by the actress Holly Pete. And I forget the
mm.
other gal. Jim Carrey was dating her for a while. Jenny, someone. Anyway,
I'm
they
not big with celebrity names, so I can't help you
but
there.
they were advocating this website because their children
Mm,
had both been diagnosed with autism, and it was a whole bunch of parents who were raising
mm.
awareness about mercury poisoning.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it had, and this is in my book. It's no longer on the site. It got changed early, like a while ago. So it was basically, the old paradigm was this: autism is a neurological disorder with no known cause, prognosis is lifelong. And then new paradigm was mercury poisoning causes
Mm,
blah, 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 all the same symptoms
yeah.
that are labeled by autism. And then how you can recover from mercury poisoning, and prognosis is very good. And so it hit me, it's a lie. Like, this is all a lie. So, I mean, then we were on a whole new path to search for who is getting free medically and biomedically from this. What are they doing?
Mm,
Who's having success? And that's, we pursued all of that, and that's where the book came from, because we had, within 6 months of pursuing the biomedical pathway, with
mhm.
prayer, with fasting, mixed with faith, like, anything done without faith is, doesn't the Bible say anything done without faith is
Good.
sin?
Yeah,
So it
that's
all
right.
had to be, hearing the voice of God. Really, what does he have? What is he knows, like, there's this big tangled ball, you know, and God knows which thread to pull that is going to unravel it for your
So true.
child, for your situation. So it's so important that you do it with, listening to the Holy Spirit.
Mm,
However, when you do follow and obey, you won't be sorry. So within 6 months of that journey, which was pretty intense, pretty arduous, pretty, like, paradigm shifting, our second daughter was able to point and say, "Oh, what's that? Who's that?" And then
wow.
we would say, "Where's the hat?" And she'd go, "In the garage." Like, we were just like, "Wait a second, is she actually
Okay,
engaging
so
with us?"
so this was after a period of time,
After we
years,
started the biomedical, yeah, so this was
like,
years
after
she had
she
been,
had already
right,
been shut
she'd already been
down.
shut down. Oh, yeah. And then after we started the biomedical pursuit, oh my gosh, I remember, she and I were on our way to, I was taking her to work. She was willing to be on today, but she had to work.
Yes.
And, she's 21 now,
Next
she
time.
works at a cafe. She finished cosmetology school, she's got her test coming up
Wow.
for the state boards this Friday, and we're praying because this is the 8th time she's gonna have taken it, so please pray for Sophia.
This is good.
In tutoring, she has 100% score time after time after
Wow.
time, but it's just test taking, right?
It's a different, yeah.
Anyway, so I remember when she was 2.5 in pre-service prayer at church, and she would never look at anyone at church. I would carry her. She would always bury her head in my chest or her dad's chest and not engage with them. It's almost like it was painful for them.
Mm,
If I
wow.
ever touched Danielle without her knowing I was going to touch her, like, she'd wipe it off. Like, it just, she couldn't, there's a lot
Receive
of
it.
sensory issues, going on. So anyway, Sophia just started singing really loud at 2.5. Well, let's see, how old was she? 2.5. So she must have been about 3.5. She just was singing so loud, "How great is our God," with everyone in prayer. And I just was weeping and weeping, like, I am witnessing a miracle. Now
Wow.
they still, any I'll pause, I'll take a breath and let you go wherever you wanna go, 'cause, there was always still ground to take. We never stopped the therapies.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
You
just
you
felt like
you
the biomedical helped open them up so they could now take advantage of the therapies.
right. So you were so the outside behavioral stuff, that was all happening in therapy, speech therapy, all that stuff. But internally now you were helping. So let's put more words to that. When you say biomedical, are you talking about detoxing? What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's really so custom. So I called every um, doctor that was certified in a certain protocol. It was called, at the time, it was called the DAN protocol, and DAN
Mhm.
stood for Defeat Autism Now. I'm not even sure if
Mm.
that's still the name of an
Yeah.
organization, but so all of the doctors that were DAN protocol certified in our, like, within 50 miles within our state, I called all of them. I had started researching what is the most cutting edge treatment that people are doing. And if I felt like I knew a little bit more of what's going on than their office was using, then I was like, okay, no, can't. I
Right.
mean, I was like, God, I want the best in the world. And
Mhm.
so we went to a guy in Texas, and he worked with more than just he didn't only specialize with autism. I mean, it's any chronic disease,
Yeah.
basically. Any. So for us, it was uh, it was at the time called rapid laser energy detox. And he
Mm.
invented this protocol that a lot of people actually now use. And I'm not even sure everyone that uses it understands that it came from him.
Wow.
He's no longer in private practice. And so we went directly to him. We rented a house when we went. My parents went with us because we now had 3 children. Our third daughter was an infant by this time, and you would have to get these laser treatments
Mm.
every single day for a different toxicity. So they were detoxed from plastics one day. Another day they were detoxed from herbicides. Another day they were detoxed from heavy metals. And so
Mhm.
it's like a rapid laser energy detox, and it
Mm.
works with the frequencies of what's going on in your own body, which organs are affected. So they each had their own protocol. And when, for instance, they were detoxed from plastic, for 24 hours, they could not touch plastic.
Wow.
Can you imagine, like, how
That's
hard,
difficult.
that's really hard. So we locked them in a bedroom. We got cotton gauze and we put it over all the light switches, over anything that was plastic. Like, it was a vigilance. And that house, when we got there, now we couldn't see this. This was a VRBO back before Airbnb,
Yeah.
and we couldn't see these pictures. But when we got to the house that we rented, Lisa, there were, I mean, I'm a realtor. I see Buddhist art every now and then.
Yeah.
We're talking, this was a Buddhist sanctuary. There were huge posters, multiple, of Buddhist monks everywhere. There were all kinds of statues everywhere. When we got there, we were like, oh my word, the enemy is like trying to find a gateway into our situation. So we hung up sheets over all of that. We gently, carefully moved all of the artwork into the garage. We prayed through that house. It's just interesting how every
Yeah.
step of the way, you just,
Yeah.
got to be vigilant.
Wow, wow. I can feel for you. Yes, my first child, when she was 4, was diagnosed with diabetes, juvenile diabetes, kind of out of the blue again, but, I right now, but I know what happened now. I didn't know at the time, but I feel I have a pretty good idea of how that all came about. So I can understand because, yeah, you're just like, okay, what do we do? How do we deal with this? Like, what is this? And you're just trying to find solutions to help make the life of your child better so that they can function more and embrace life fully, right? And not feel like
Yes.
they're have to miss out on anything. And so
Yeah.
totally. And so you went through this with both of your daughters and this detoxification, and what are
And
some
they
of the
also did, like, parasite cleanse, all kinds of things.
laser, yeah, and
Mhm.
then I think you did also some, was it lymphatic, was that part of that detoxification as well?
Well,
Or no?
I don't know how the lasers worked
Okay.
exactly, but I think the
Yeah.
laser affected all of that. And then
Mhm.
the supplement protocol that we did, there was a chelation form of a
Okay.
chelation therapy.
Yeah.
There were herbal remedies.
Yeah.
Um, I learned a lot about quantum physics. Oh, it's all based on that. Then, um,
Hmm.
And then the food, I learned so much about food.
Mm,
I think that was probably the biggest wake-up call for me. I used to think,
wow.
well, it wouldn't be in the grocery store or the fast food chains if it's not safe. I
Yeah.
mean, the FDA, I
Yeah.
really thought the government was out to watch out for people.
Yes.
That's what I thought. I really did.
Yeah. And that's a whole topic in itself that we
Yeah.
now have a lot more information about than we did then. I mean, even looking at the incidence of autism probably back then was I don't
Much
know the
even
numbers.
so by the time our kids were diagnosed, I remember reading a statistic from back in the before the '80s, it was like
Yeah.
1 in 10,000 children. When
Mhm.
our kids were diagnosed, it was 1 in 80, which I thought was unreal, and now
Mhm.
I just heard recently, I think it's 1 in 33.
Yeah, I actually heard I even heard like 1 in 5 that is, but it's yeah,
Wow.
it's, staggering actually the numbers, but what you're saying makes so much sense. So you brought your daughters, Sophia and Danielle, through this biomedical procedures to help detox, work from the inside out to see if there's anything that's affecting their ability to function, and what were some of the results of that?
Well, so Sophia, our second, like I said, we noticed her able to answer yes and no questions within 6 months and just she would just engage every now and then. Danielle, hers, I would say was a very steady over time progression. Sophia, it felt like she made some jumps. Fast forward to today, if this
Yeah.
will help. So
Yes.
Danielle is now a senior in Bible college majoring in theology, and she's getting A's and B's. It's just
Wow. Wow.
it's amazing. She's living independently in the dorm at the school where she is. She is, I mean, we have conversations. Um, she it loves being on the production team. She when she was in high school, she really loved playing guitar and bass. We made them always take music classes from the time they were in
Mhm.
elementary school. They had to be in choir because I just know how music is so therapeutic.
Yeah.
So she was always good at music. Amazing flute player, then saxophone, then guitar. And then when she was in high school, even though she still struggled with conversation being easy and free flowing, she could by that time, like if she could see something done, she can imitate it. She could do it. So she emceed the guitar show once and
Wow.
also played in it and sang in it. But she just was like up there welcoming. She was an MC. She was anime. I was like, oh my gosh, because this girl had been in church her whole life. She's like, oh, I know what you're supposed to do on a stage. So she can do
Yes.
that. Her favorite thing though is actually behind the camera. So she loves working in the production crew at a church where she's at. She's at a mega church now where she lives, but she'll come home in the summers and on breaks. And then when she graduates, I don't know, we're going to figure out what she'll do, but she still does not yet have her driver's license, and neither does Sophia. But it's because they've just, been focusing on other things.
Mhm.
And Sophia, like I said, graduated cosmetology school. She's working on her license,
Wow.
and she loves working at this cafe though, where she's at. So I asked Sophia, I told her about today, and I said, Sophia, it'd be so great if you could be on, but she's working.
Yeah.
And I said, what would you want everyone to know?
Cool.
And she said, well, I would just want everyone to know that when you're going through it, it's hard, but you're not alone.
Oh my goodness.
And then I asked her, I said, because she
Yeah.
remembers what it was like to not be verbal. I said, when you couldn't talk very much, like, do you really do you think, like, did you know always what was going on? And she said, yeah, I did a lot. I knew what was happening. I knew what was going on.
Mm.
She goes, I just wasn't, what did she say? She goes, I just wasn't interested.
Mm.
And then she goes, but now, like, she's more interested and she cares more now. She's still more of a quiet person.
Yeah.
And she likes being alone. She's an introvert, but she is
That's a
a
personality, yeah.
yeah, it's a personality. She's a co-small group leader, and our church is just so wonderful. And she has 2 small group leaders in the young adults class, uh, young adult small group with her.
Mhm.
And they're 2 guys, and she's a gal, and they just treat her like an equal. And anyway, if you were around Sophia at a party, she would sit and talk with you. She wouldn't be like the big life of the party, but she would sit and talk with you. And if you were around her a lot, then you would see, okay, she's still taking some ground.
Yeah.
She said,
Yeah.
yeah, some things I just don't understand. So,
Mhm.
and when
Yeah.
Danielle was 16, she started struggling with anger toward God and toward us, that she was in this position. And I remember telling her, honey, I'm angry about it too. I and I don't know what to like. We can't change the past.
Yeah.
And the only thing I can tell you is you have to tell God that you're angry.
Mm.
And she really always wanted to be able to freely engage. And so
Mhm.
once I think they became really aware of the diagnosis when they were about maybe 13 and 15, and we were at a restaurant where there was a young man that walked in. He was a teenager, and he was very demonstrative. And they were able to, by this time they were just able to go with the flow, things like that. Like if you didn't know them and didn't spend a lot of time talking with them, you might not have even been able to tell by the time they were early teenagers that they were on the spectrum.
Mhm.
And anyway, they said, Mom, what's wrong with that boy? And they were just asking it at the table. And we said, when we get in the car, we'll talk about it. And then so we were in the car with our 2 younger ones who are completely neurotypical. They've never had an immunization in their lives. And the 2 younger ones in the very back, their eyes were as big as saucers, like, oh my gosh, we're really going to have this conversation. Because we never really used the word autism in our home. We just,
Mhm.
if we never said our kids have autism,
Right.
because it's not theirs, it doesn't belong to them.
Right.
And we were very careful to say they were diagnosed with autism.
Yeah.
Um, for purposes of getting services, the Lord helped me, because I just didn't even want to say the word at all. And the Lord
Yeah.
said, don't be afraid of a diagnosis. It's just a diagnosis,
Right.
and milk it for all it's worth, is what he
Right.
told me. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. So anyway,
Get the help you need. Get
good,
every help you
all
need.
the help we need. And so anyway, which again, they're not going to tell you what's available to you. And it took a friend in the last couple of years to help point out to us all the resources that we weren't getting for her
Right.
now that they're adults that are available.
Wow.
That really would have
Wow.
been available the last few years, but they were just, I don't know, when it's your life, you don't
Yeah.
realize how much you're doing for your kids,
Yeah.
because it's just, yeah. So
It's
anyway,
just what you do.
it's just what you do. So,
Yeah.
where was I going? Oh, so yeah, we told them, so that boy, have you guys ever heard the word autism? And they're like, yeah. And we said, well, he's probably diagnosed with autism and he has a hard time, and we said, actually, the 2 of you were diagnosed with autism. And they were just like locked in. And they had a relationship with the Lord by that time.
Mhm.
So it was really good. We could, bring the Lord into everything.
Mhm.
And then I said, remember when you couldn't talk at all? And they were like, yeah. Remember when you used to have so many meltdowns and anger that your sisters were afraid of you? And they were like, yes. And I mean, we said, that's because of autism.
Wow.
And so they were just like, anyway, they just started just weeping and weeping and weeping. And we just really, everybody just loved on them. And we just said, we love you so much. God's doing so much in your lives. And you've come so far and you're going to keep growing. And anyway, it was just one of those moments I'll never forget when we were
Mm.
sitting out front of the restaurant on a family vacation in the car. And then that kind of helped open up the conversation. So then as they were, it's interesting. You always wonder, okay, first of all, we've never taught our kids Santa is real, but if we had, I would have said, okay, Lord, when do we tell our kids Santa's not real? And it's
Right.
like my mom used to teach me, whenever a child asks you, that's
Yeah.
when it's time.
Right.
So, because that's when they're aware. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so we just, anyway, I will say too that making sure we were always faithful, regular to church. I don't know what
Mm,
we would have done without that.
right.
I
For
don't know.
you as parents as well, like, just to have that
Mhm.
place. This is really powerful. I'm just thinking, and we'll just wrap up here in a few minutes, but I'm just thinking about and I've had a few conversations like this with parents who have children who have been diagnosed. And in some cultures, it is, especially within Christian circles, it's actually very, very shaming, and the parents feel the shame. You said earlier, like, we're trying to figure out, were we doing something wrong as parents when you're trying to sort through some of the symptoms or behaviors? And some parents still live with that, feeling helpless and hopeless. And am I a bad parent because I can't help my child? And what I hear you saying is that there's things sometimes that are out of our control, that if we just maybe learn from others who have walked the path, we might find something that will help take back our children, but also to give us peace and to give us what we need. Is there anything
Yeah.
more you want to say about that, Krista?
Yeah, you can't live in regret. I used to grieve the loss of what could have been, what should have been, if I had known better, done better,
Mhm.
all of the above. And this gentleman in our church who was an adult disabled, but he could really converse very well. He had been hit by a bus and when he was a younger man, and so just a lot of challenges, but um, I said, I am just praying for restoration of everything. He said, don't pray for that. He said, God wants to
Mm,
do something brand new.
wow.
And that always stuck with me. And when you focus on, Lord, what can you do now? What can you show me now? God knows when he can go back in time and heal. Like he's taken me back in time many times and healed me emotionally of
Yeah,
events. But
yeah.
it's not on me to go digging all the time, or if you're, I would just say, pull out all the stops, whatever you can do. If you don't have the finances, you have prayer
Mhm.
and God's the answer. God's
Yeah.
always, he'll show you the answer. I think it's do you believe? And then
Mm,
are you willing to take the action when he shows it to you? We wrote a newsletter at Christmas that year showing all of the things that had happened. And that's in the book too, because that newsletter, Christmas letter, generated so many phone calls from people like friends of
mm,
friends all over the United States who wanted to call me and ask, what did you do exactly? And when I would tell them some of the things
yeah.
I've shared with you, they would just say, oh, that's just a lot. I'm like, it is, and they're like, "That's just so hard." I go, "It is hard, but it's hard with hope."
Yes.
And
And what
so,
is the alternative?
I just think that it's like anything else, the results sometimes, are not seen just because people don't want to do what is required to get some of the
Yeah.
not that's not always the case, I'm not saying
No.
that, but, and then the other thing is I had to leave the timing of the results in the Lord's hands. I wanted an instant miracle,
Right.
always.
Right.
And I'm still believing for that, Lisa.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm going to a healing and deliverance conference, 2 of them, in
Yeah.
the next 6 weeks, because I'm
Yeah.
like, "Lord, if there's more that I can learn that can help us,
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
open."
Yes. Yeah, it comes in different forms in different places, and yeah, and I think we are to continue in hope. And but what you've shared today, I know is going to bring hope to some people who may be listening or may listen to the replay of this later on. Some people, yeah, some people who are chiming in here, comments, because if you don't have the funds, for example, to go and get other kinds of therapies or look into that, pick up Krista's book and just allow God to speak to you through that as just something that you can or who can help you in terms of being able to add something to what you're already doing or to be able to give you some tool. And I just am so thankful for you being able to share your story and tell Sophia thank you for what she said as well. And it really does bring hope. And I know in today's age, there's so much more information out there about some of the increase of diseases that we see on the rise. And I know with your two second children, there's some things you did differently, right? Based on what
A
you learned.
lot of things I've done differently, and there's so much more, so many more, like, treatments available out there now that aren't as expensive, and if
Yes.
you're connected with Lisa, I think there are a lot of practical things you can do to generate
Mm,
the money
yes.
that God's already given in your hand whatever you need,
Mm, yes.
and so, for me, Lisa, the reason I wrote the book, and I've never taken personally a penny from the sales of the book, I remember being in that house where we cleansed it, when we were first doing
Mhm.
the treatments, and I was like, "Okay, Satan, I'm just telling you right now, my kids are gonna be so free and delivered and healed and have the life that they want, the life that God put in the dreams in their heart, and when we whatever we learn out of this, I am letting the world know for free." And so all of the
Mhm.
proceeds of the book sales just get donated to, charity. So,
Awesome, awesome. Well, if you've been listening today, whether it be live or the replay, make sure you share this episode with someone that you know needs to hear Krista's story. And Krista said at the beginning, every path is different. It's not clear cut. But we hope that in sharing this story, that it gives you hope and maybe ignites something in you to be able to find resources that you might need that maybe you never even thought about, just like Krista had someone come to her and just opened up a whole new world of possibility. We're hoping that that's going to happen for you as well. And by all means, I'm sure Krista doesn't mind if you get in touch with her, but for sure, check out her book online at Amazon. It is, once again, Deception of Disease, How We're Taking Our Kids Back from Autism, based on a true stories, I should say, of two beautiful girls that they were helping to be able to just become fully functioning and get the fullness of all that God intended for them. So thank you so much for coming, Krista. I love you and I just cherish you. And thank you for sharing your faith story as well, because really that's what it is.
thank you, Lisa, for bringing attention to this and being so courageous. A lot of people wouldn't talk about these things publicly. So, thank you for the invitation, and I just, appreciate everyone who's here.
You are welcome. I'll put the link to the book down below so you can go grab it. And thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye, Krista.
Bye.